Good morning, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started for our webinar. Wanted to thank you all for joining me today. My name is Jennifer Morse. I'm a product evangelist here at MadCap Software. Today we're going to be going through our announcement of MadCap Central. Many of you have heard this new product that we've come out with, so we're really excited to be walking through the features and benefits of that today. And we're also going to talk through the update to Flare that came out as well. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Again, today's agenda, pretty straightforward. We're going to go through an overview of MadCap Flare 2016 R2. We're going to talk about how some of the new features we've added, including how it integrates with our newest offering, which is MadCap Central. And then, of course, we'll segue into MadCap Central and go through many of the features and benefits there. Now, I want to encourage all of you to ask questions during this webinar. There is a questions panel within the GoToWebinar console, so feel free to type in any questions there. I'll do my best to get to as many as I can at the end. Also, just as a reminder, this webinar will be recorded, so if for whatever reason you have to pop out early or you can't wait till the end, not a problem. You'll be sent a link to the recording as soon as we're done. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. So I'm going to put PowerPoint away and bring up MadCap Flare. If for whatever reason you can't hear me or you're having any issues with the audio, go ahead and give us a hi sign. You can use that questions panel. Hopefully you can all hear me and you can all see my screen okay. But if you're having any issues, go ahead and pop it into the questions panel and we'll do our best to help you behind the scenes. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. One of the first things you're going to notice when you launch Flare is this name change right up here. So right now we have a new update to Flare. It's called MadCap Flare 2016 R2. What we're doing is we're moving to an agile release cycle, which offers a lot of benefits to our users. So throughout the year, as certain fixes and features are complete and become available, we can release them as an update to the current version. So updates to Flare will no longer just include fixes. We're going to have features available as well. So in the past, new features were often saved for a major version release. Now we can make certain features available and get them out to the users much more quickly. So really important then, as a user base, you want to make sure you keep your maintenance current so that you continue to receive those updates, which again will not only include fixes, but features as well. All right, so let's talk about some of the new features that we've added in Flare, just a few little ones here. The first thing I want to talk about is pinning images, which makes your favorite images easily and quickly accessible for future use. You know, oftentimes one's image library can grow quite large, and you may find yourself using certain images over and over again. So this pinning images idea is just a really easy way to access and insert them quickly. Similar to how we added the ability to pin snippets and get access to snippets we use, we can do the same for images. So here I'm going to just go ahead and do that right in my topic. Again, we can insert images a lot of ways in Flare, but if we're using the toolbar up here, you'll notice when we click this little button, we'll have the option to see images that we've used recently. So I can choose any one of these. Anytime you insert an image, it's going to list itself here in the recently used image list. And if there happens to be one that you use often, you can pin it. So maybe this is one that I use over and over again. Maybe this one is as well. So again, just a really easy way to get access to images that we use quickly or pin ones that we use over and over again. Okay, so the next thing I want to touch on is the internal text editor. We made some improvements here, which is the ability to manage font size. So my eyeballs happen to love this feature, and it's something that many of you have requested. If you happen to be somebody that likes to use this text editor now and again, we have the ability to increase the font size. So if you want to make it bigger for whatever reason, if it's easier on your eyes, you can do that. We can decrease the font size if we want, or we can go ahead and set it back to the factory settings. So a nice little feature for those of us who have hurting eyeballs. All right, previous and next buttons. So these were functional in our HTML5 tri-pane output, but now we can add them to toolbars used in our top navigation HTML5 output as well. So I'll show you what this looks like. I have a skin here. This is my topic toolbar for my HTML5 top navigation skin, and you can see here that I've added this previous topic and next topic button. One tip here, you're also going to want to make sure you include in your master page, I'll pop over here to my master page, that you include your topic toolbar proxy so that it shows up. And what it ends up looking like, and I'll go ahead and pull up an example here. This is the online help for MadCap Flare. you can see here that we've got the forward and the previous and the next topic buttons enabled. And essentially what it allows us to do is move through these topics in a sequential fashion. So you might want to include this for a number of reasons. They can be really helpful maybe if you're presenting topics that are sequential, such as a tutorial or maybe a long process spanning many topics. Your readers can use these buttons to progress through the content in more of a sequential fashion. So just a nice little usability add-on here for your HTML5 top nav if you choose to use it. All right, let me switch back over to Flare here. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is we added the ability to have pre- and post-build processes. So if you pop over to your target editor, you're going to notice this new tab down here called Build Events. This lets us run command line events before or after a target is generated. So it's a handy feature for those who like to do things a little bit more programmatically. So maybe you'll want to run a post-process command that copies files from our output folder after a target is generated. Or maybe another possibility, maybe you need to run a process that removes some MadCap specific tags from your HTML output. So instead of performing these tasks manually after you build your target, you can automate the steps by including the appropriate post-build commands in the target editor. So for those of you who like to script things like this, it makes it much easier to manage them on a per-target basis, and it helps eliminate some of the human error factor that can sometimes happen when you're doing these things. All right, so next I want to talk about how this new update integrates with MadCap Central and segue into some of the features and benefits of that tool. So I'm going to pop up here to the View ribbon. So what is MadCap Central? Well, MadCap Central is our new cloud-based content management platform that lets you plan, track, manage certain processes, content, and all the teams and users that are at the heart of your organization responsible for producing documentation. So while we think MadCap Central is especially useful for Flare users, even non-Flare users will be able to take advantage of some of the features, and we'll touch on that a little bit later when we actually walk through it. But we're going to start from the point of view from the Flare author. So we don't actually upload projects from within Central. As a Flare author, you're going to do this from the desktop project itself. Up in the View ribbon, there's a new button here called MadCap Central. And when you click on that button, you're going to come to this interface. Before we can actually log in here from Flare, you'll need to be able to log into Central from a browser. You can do this. This can be done a couple ways. One, you can be invited to log into Central from the person who signed up for the Central license online. And you'll receive an email from that person that will let you log in to create a username and password to access your Central license. Or if you're the person who signed up for the license, you'll be able to create a new username and password from that email you receive. And then you can subsequently invite other team members to participate in the Central so that they can log in too from either Flare or from a browser. So once you've created your username and password to log into Central, you can use that same information to log into Central from Flare. So I'll go ahead and do that here. My email happens to be saved. And I'll go ahead and click Login. And now we're here. Go ahead and do a quick save here. Clean up my work a little bit. Okay, so we're logged into Central. And now when we're logged in, we can use the buttons on the top of this MadCap Central pane to interact with Central. So I'm going to go through some of these here quickly for you. The first one that I want to talk about is the ability to upload our projects. So in order to take advantage of Central, we need to get our projects up there. So the sample project that I've created here is just local to my machine. It's not living anywhere else. It's just living here on my C drive. But with this button, I can upload it to my Central license. So when I click this button, we'll go ahead and select the license that we want to bind this project to. We'll give it a name. By default, it's going to use the name of the project that you created. And if you want to, you can create a project description. And that's going to become part of the project profile when we see it in Central. So I'll just say my demo today, just so we have some text in there. And when we click OK, it's going to go through a process of binding it up to the cloud. And we should get a message here that we've got a successful bind. So terrific. So when we click OK, we get a little bit of information about our project here. So with really just a few seconds, I was able to take my project local and bind it up to my Central license in the cloud. So doing so gives us a lot of benefits. So a copy of our project that was once local here, now we can synchronize it onto MadCap Central using the integrated source control. So now we don't have to wait for IT or the dev team to get us set up with a source control system. With one click, you saw how easy it was for me to take my local project and bind it to the cloud, so now I can take advantage of all the benefits that source control gives me. And you can see here that I've got this new source control tab open, so I can continue to author in Flare, do my commits, and get everything synced up in the cloud up in Central. Another benefit is once our project is bound, users on your team who are part of the Central license can import or pull projects from Central down to their machine locally and start contributing on content development, making it easy to author as a team. And also, when our project is bound to Central, we'll be able to easily schedule builds. We'll be able to keep any builds for staging or archival purposes. And if you want, you'll be able to host your output in Central, making you much more self-reliant in the publishing process. Again, no need to enlist the help of your IT team, if you even have one, or get set up with a staging server, production server. No need to have a separate build server set up to automate any build processes. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit more detail when we switch over to Central. So keep in mind that Central is not a replacement for Flare as our authoring environment. We're going to continue to author in Flare, and any changes that we make locally will be pushing up to Central. So for example, here I added this guy. Maybe we want to get rid of step number 3 for whatever reason. I'll go ahead and delete it. And when I click Save, I can go ahead and push my changes up to Central. So I'll do a push, and I can leave a comment if I want. So deleted, step 3, not needed, or whatever it is the comment is. So I'll go ahead and do a commit, and we're good. So another button that I want to talk about here, this little unplug button. So unbinding our project from Central. If you no longer need to keep your project bound to Central for whatever reason, we can remove its binding. When we remove the binding from the project, it doesn't actually remove it from Central. It simply removes the link between Central as the repository and the project. So the project will still be available locally here, but we'll no longer be able to upload or push any of those changes from the local project up to Central. Importing a project. So if another user imports, or excuse me, if another user uploads a Flare project to your Central license and you don't yet have access to it, we can use this button here to download it and get access so that we can continue to collaborate. So you'll have to be associated with that project and have the correct permissions. And again, we'll touch a little bit on that when we switch over to the Central license. So I'll go ahead and click on this button, and it's going to make a quick connection. I'm going to choose the license I want to connect to. And then I can see all the projects that are up there. In fact, here's the one that we just uploaded. So maybe I want to grab this project here, Demo 1, and start working on it. I can pull it down, I can make my edits, and at the end of the day, I can do a commit and get all my changes back up to the repository. Okay, last but not least, if you don't already have Central open in a browser, you can launch it right here from Flare. So I'll go ahead and do that. When we first log into MadCap Central, we come to this home dashboard here. And this home dashboard is a place where we can see overview information at a glance through the use of widgets, which are little information objects. There are actually 2 areas in Central where we're going to be talking about widgets. So the first place is the home dashboard here, and also in the project area, and we'll take a look at that in a bit when we dig into the projects. So each project is going to have its own dashboard, and we can customize the information in these widgets a little bit. I'm actually going to come back to the screen and talk about it a little bit more detail because I want to do a little bit of housekeeping first to make better use of this area. So today we're going to go through all the functional areas here in Central. Users and permissions, we're going to show how to add users to our license and set permissions to control what each person's allowed to do. We're going to go through teams and show you how you can organize users of your license into teams if you want to. Tasks, we're going to look at how tasks can help us manage workflows and processes. Projects and builds, again, we'll be able to see all of our uploaded Flare projects, all the associated users and teams, and actually manage the build process. And then finally, we'll make our way back to the home screen and talk a little bit more about some of these widgets. Let's first dig into the users and permissions area here. When we first log in, or when we first see the users, you may, if you're the person who signed up for the Central license, this list will be blank. So you'll want to actually add users to the Central license. So anybody on your team that needs to put their fingers in the pie will want to be invited into the central license. Before we invite users, I just want to direct your view here up to the upper right-hand side on your name. When you click on your name, you have the option for some settings. This is where we can round out some of the profile information for yourself. You can change your avatar if you want. You can make a funny picture, your own picture, whatever you want to do. There's really only 3 required fields here, which is your first and last name and email. And you can fill these out optionally if you want. Another place where you're going to want to pay a little bit of attention when you first log in is this notification center. This is the area that lets us choose when we receive notifications, when certain things happen in the system. So everybody's idea of what's useful will be a little bit different. You know, maybe you don't care about all the things that I have selected here, but you can pick and choose. When any of these things happen in MadCap Central, you'll be notified. You could be notified 2 ways when any of these things happen. You can be notified using the notification center. So when you log into Central, there's a little bell up here. It's grayed out, but when we close this, it'll show up a little bit better. There's a little bell with some notifications here on the upper right-hand side. Or you can opt to receive an email when any of these things happen. Or you can choose to receive both. So that's totally up to you to configure. So I'll go ahead and click Save. To add users, it's very easy to do. I'll click the plus button, and I'll go ahead and add their name. So I'll go ahead and add somebody here. And you just put in their email. And at the time when we invite them, we can also set their permissions. So we can designate what kinds of things this person can do when they come into Central. So this is where it may be helpful for maybe non-Flare users to have a license as well. Maybe Julia here, maybe she's on our QA team. She doesn't have any business worrying about any of the administrative stuff going on here. She's not going to use Flare, so she doesn't need any permissions to upload or pull projects. But maybe she's somebody that needs to be looking at our builds and managing our builds and QAing them. So we can choose what permissions we want to give her here. Maybe I don't even want her to be able to lead builds. I just want her to be able to view them and schedule them. So we can send the invitation here. We can also bulk add users. So if you have, oops, it's wanting me to send that invitation first. So off it goes to Julia, and it'll show up here. And the status will show invited. As soon as Julia gets that email and selects a username and password to authenticate, this will change to active. We can also bulk add users, so I'll come back here to the screen. This lets us point to a CSV file. Really simple, just first name, last name, and email address. So if you had 20 people you wanted to add at once, you can do so that way. Much easier. And then, of course, when you invite them, they'll all show up here on this list. And as soon as they become active, the status will change. We can also see whether they're online or where they're away. We can see when they last signed in and signed out, so a little bit of information. If we hover over them, we can see a little bit of information about them. If you'll notice here on this particular user, anybody who's got this little blue circle with the crown means that this person is a user admin. They can pretty much do anything. And again, those are just permissions that are set. We can message this person, we can assign this person a task, we can do any activity for this person. So a little bit of a peek into what you can do in terms of inviting users. All right, teams. So the teams page can be used to organize our users into groups. So this provides a convenient way to associate people with projects and also quickly communicate with a specific set of users. We wanted to make this really flexible to handle many different company sizes. So maybe I'm part of a really small team. I may only, or a small company, I may only have 1 team here, maybe just a few users. But maybe I'm part of a much larger team with users distributed across many different functional areas. Well, you may see a longer list of teams here with different users grouped together, all working on different projects. So as you can see, we have a few teams in this particular license. We can see what users are associated with this team. We can see the projects that, associated with the team who created it, and a description if we want to. It's very easy to add a team. If we have the permissions, we can create one right here. Maybe we'll call this the B team. And we can give it a description if we want. This is our team. We can choose the projects that are associated with this particular team. So here's the project that we just created. And then we can choose all the members who need to be part of this group. And there it goes. So again, it's just a way to organize our users into teams if we want to. again, if you have the right permissions, you can do a lot of editing here. We can actually change, who's on it and what projects are associated with it, but you have to have the right administrative permissions in order to do that. Okay, the next functional area I want to talk about are the tasks. The tasks page lets us keep track of work that needs to be completed and helps us visualize some workflows. So similar looking to a Kanban board, our view here that we're looking at consists of tasks in 3 states. So tasks can be in to-do, they can be in progress, and they can be completed. We can move tasks from one milestone to another as work gets completed as well. It's very easy to do. We can click and we can drag things over if we want to, just by clicking and dragging them over. Another thing to look at, when we first look at this task board, there could be a lot going on here. We can use these toolbars at the top to help filter and make it a little bit more manageable. So we can filter these tasks by project, so maybe I just want to focus in on all the tasks associated with a particular project. In this license, we can choose what we want to filter on. We can filter by date, so maybe we want to look at tasks that are only due at a certain time. We can filter by user, and then a few other options here, by priority. Another quick way is if you come into the task board, maybe you just want to see everything that's assigned to you. All you need to do is click this guy here and it'll toggle and just show you the tasks that others have assigned to you. So let's take a look at one of these tasks and see what they look like. I'll go ahead and grab this guy here. So here's a task that I assigned to somebody on my team. I have a little bit of description. Here are my notes from the engineering meeting containing their specs for what needs to be added. And I actually attached my engineering notes. So when this person here, when Mike Hamilton will receive a notification that he's got a new task, he'll be able to look and see the details. He can also start a conversation with me back and forth. When he's done doing what he needs to do, he can move this task into some other setting. Perhaps he can move it to in progress or complete. And anytime any of those things happen, I'll be notified since I set up the task for him. It's very easy to create a new task. So I'll go ahead and click this plus button, and maybe we'll say something like review my outputs. We can give it a description if we want to. We can set the priority level. Maybe we want to associate a project with it. Let's see. All my PDFs are done. So whatever it is we want to say, we can give it a start date. So maybe that starts today. We could give it a due date. Oops, excuse me. We can give it a due date. Maybe it's due tomorrow. And I'm going to estimate that this review is probably going to take 2 hours. The next thing we can do is we can assign this task to a user. You can't assign a task to yourself, but then you can choose to assign it to any other user in your license. So I'll go ahead and select Rob Hollinger here. And then Rob will be notified. If there were any kind of attachments like Word docs or images or anything we need to associate with this task, we can click this attachments button and make it available to the person as well. And we'll go ahead and create that task. So we'll pull one up here. So here's a task that was assigned. Maybe it's all done. Maybe it's removed. We can put it over here to the in progress button. We can also move it over to the completed button. Maybe you get a task and it's all done. You can just move it right over to completed. It doesn't need to be in the in progress state. So that's totally up to you to manage. The calendar view over here, just a separate, an alternate view of our tasks. It's a way to see our tasks in more of a calendarized fashion. So some of you may prefer to look at things in more of a chronological way. And if you're somebody, maybe you're on the management side of things and you're setting a lot of tasks for folks, then you can see how balanced the tasks are among the team. Again, I'm looking at all of the tasks here, but maybe I want to switch and just look at my tasks. I can see how my week and my month ahead is stacking up in terms of what's coming up and what's due. If you click on any of these, of course, it highlights it here in the calendar for us. Archive. So let me go back to the task board here. The idea behind tasks that are in the archives section are tasks that are done. They're completed. We don't need to show them up here in the board anymore. Maybe we want to get them off. So these are tasks that happen to be done. I'll go ahead and open them up here, and I'm going to go ahead and move it into the archives section. So again, these are tasks that are completed, and we just want to move them off the board and into a different view. We still have access to them, so if we ever needed to fall back to that task for any reason, maybe we need to look at the discussion or the dialogue that was going on that task or any attachments that were added, we always have access to them. Backlog. So let me go back to the task board here, since I have an example that I want to show. The idea behind a backlog is that maybe you have tasks that you created for yourself or for others that need to be backburnered for whatever reason. In other words, maybe you have a task that you need to revisit in the future, something that you need to put a pin in. It's important, but it's something that we need to kind of put off into the future a little bit. We can set the status of that task to backlog and come back to it later. So maybe this guy here, for whatever reason, maybe this is a potential backlog, I can move it to that state if I want and get it off my immediate board. And when we click close, he's actually gone. We still have access to them. If we click this backlog button, any tasks that have been created and backlogged can be accessed here and then put back onto the task board when it's appropriate. The other thing you'll notice here on the right-hand side is this task activity. So when we're first coming to these tasks, we can kind of get a quick bird's eye view of everything that's happening among all of the tasks going on here on this particular task board. All right, so the next place where I want to segue to is projects and build management. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over here. So this is the area that shows all of the MadCap Flare projects that have been uploaded and bound to your central license. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the benefits of binding our Flare project to Central is to make it really easy to build and host all of our outputs. Essentially build, stage, host our content without the need to have our IT team involved, because many of you may not have those resources readily available. Another benefit, which I touched on earlier, is that the local project files that we work on and the clone files on Central can be used as an integrated source control solution. Again, so without having to rely on another department to get you set up with a source control server or a source control program or any kind of workflow setup, even if you're a team of one, perhaps you're a team of many, source control provides a ton of benefits, and this just makes it really easy to get set up. So here's the project list. These are all of the projects that have been uploaded to this particular central license. Here's that one we were just working on earlier that we uploaded. And so let's go ahead and dig into one of these and take a look at what's going on. So I'm going to click on Demo 1 here. When you click on a project, the first thing you're going to do is come to the project dashboard. So this is that second place where we come to the dashboard in this notion of widgets. So again, widgets are just little information objects that give us a quick bird's eye view into what's going on. And again, everybody's idea of what's useful is going to be different. So everybody in Central, or each individual user, will have their own dashboards customized to their needs. So widgets can be easily added. There's a button up here in the toolbar where we can select whatever widgets we want. I've actually populated my dashboard here with some things that I find useful. Here I'm looking at all the build activity for this particular project. I can see the project properties at a glance, how big it is. If I want to, I can see, I don't have any live builds here, but any builds that I've set to live will show up here. I also have a task summary and a task calendar widget here. This is really useful to kind of see, okay, if I just want to hone in on all of the tasks that are going on for this particular project, maybe you have a meeting with the engineering team and you want to have a quick glance at what's happening and where you are in terms of all the things that need to happen for this project. You get a quick bird's eye view of what's going on. It may also be useful to duplicate widgets on your dashboard. So for example, right now I'm looking at all of the tasks for Demo 1 for all of the users on this project. Maybe I want to duplicate this. I'll go ahead and click duplicate, and here he is down here. Maybe I just want to filter this a little bit. Hopefully you can all see this. Maybe I just want to filter this by user. So, Rob, for example, he may be my team lead, and I want to take a look at what's going on just on his plate to make sure that he's on task and that everything's going according to plan. So there may be some widgets within a project that you may find you want to duplicate. Maybe you just want to hone in on what's going on with a particular user. It's very helpful to do so. Okay, so on the right-hand side, we get a few other menu options. Again, the project dashboard where we are. I want to go into the build management here. So when we go into the build management section of this particular project, we'll see a targets folder. So hopefully this should look familiar to you as Flare users. This replicates that targets folder in your Flare project. If you have the right permissions, we can actually come in here and we can build right here in Central. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and open this guy up. I'll click on this target. I can build this target in a few different ways. I can right-click. I have a context menu. I can click Build. I'll go ahead and kick off a build here. I can also click this button up here if I want to. Another handy thing we can do, I mentioned the scheduling of things. If we want for any of the targets here in this particular project, we can come up to this button here and we can schedule builds for this particular target. So this build schedule dialog comes up. It's very easy to use. We can set to say, well, maybe this particular target we want to build at 1:30 in the morning, every day. We'll go ahead and choose 1:30 a.m. You'll want to set your time zone, of course. And you can choose the days you want to build. So really easy to do. And I'll save and finish. And when we look at this target again, we'll see we have this little icon. If we hover over it, Central's going to tell us what's going on. But this is actually a scheduled target. We can still kick off a build manual if we want to, but now this is set to run nightly. Again, no need to get a build server set up. We don't have to write a batch file or use the command line interface. I just use this nice little UI to schedule the build every night. So here's the build that just happened. When our targets are built, we can view any of them. So here's the guy that I just built, and I can view them a few different ways. I can click the little eyeball icon here, and this will open up in a browser and show me what we've actually built. Now, if you have Flare, of course, you can do this, right? You can build your outputs in Flare. You can build them locally. But maybe you have other non-Flare users on your team who need to check out what you're doing. Maybe another team member who has a central seat can log in and check out your builds. These folks may have limited permissions. Obviously, they don't have the pull and the push and the administrative options. They just need to focus on your builds, what they look like, so that maybe you can have a little bit of a QA going on without having to have an extra staging server set up internally. So we'll come back to Central here. We can choose to keep any builds right here. So if this is a build that I like, I can go ahead and click this little check mark and choose to keep it. We can also set builds to live so that our users can have access to it by clicking this button here. There's also a right click and a context menu where we can do many of the same things. So I'll go ahead and choose this build and set it to live. When we set a build to live, you'll see that we get this little icon change. It turns into a globe. We're also assigned a vanity URL. So we have some information down here about this particular build. Again, we can see when it started, when it finished, the view log, which we can click on and view if we need to. But here's that vanity URL I was talking about. This is what you can use so that your end users can actually see what you made, and your users get access to your information. So we'll use this live setting if we want to use Central as a hosting option for our content. So doing this in Central can be really beneficial. Again, it removes the building process from our local machine. We're using the power of the server now to make it very quick and very neat and tidy. And as I mentioned, as I showed, we can easily schedule the build process for targets to happen whenever we want automatically. We don't need to get a build server set up, purchase an extra build license. We don't need to write a batch file, use the command line. We can be much more self-reliant as authors to automate this process. We can also, as I was talking about here, we can retain builds for the particular target that we want to keep. So this works a little bit differently when we're building in Flare. When you build a target in Flare, the previous build gets flushed. So having a build to revert back to can be handy at times. Maybe you go live. This guy I set to live here. This is what the whole world can see. Maybe you notice that something is awry. Maybe you have a massive typo or some content got in there that shouldn't be in there for whatever reason. If you have access, then you can log into Central and do a quick switch. Maybe this one we know is good. It may not have, I don't know, 100% of everything we need, but we know there are no typos. So maybe we want to revert back to this particular build for whatever reason. I can simply click this button, and now I can revert back to a build that I know is stable while I go back into Flare and fix all of my issues. My URL doesn't change. My end users won't get a 404 or anything, but now they're looking at something that we know is typo-free, for example. So again, keeping builds is just an easy way to park builds that we want to use as a backup. Or, as I mentioned, another way to look at it, think of it like a staging area for your builds, because again, other non-Flare users like a QA engineer or some other manager, they may need to quickly log in and see or review what everything is looking like. So again, that person may have limited permissions or permissions only related to builds. So if that engineer or manager can log into Central, they can come in here and they can review their outputs. Again, you're much more self-reliant. We don't need to get anybody to set up a staging server for us and help manage that. And if we want to, we can use Central to host any of our outputs when we're ready. So maybe we want to use Central as a staging area like I talked about. but perhaps host some content elsewhere. We have feedback early on from folks that said, all of this looks really awesome and it looks so easy to use in terms of output hosting and building, but some of our outputs we need to manage on our own, or maybe you need to adhere to certain archival, internal archival policies. So we do give users the option to download any of the builds you want. So this little button here will actually download any build and download it onto your machine locally in a handy little zip file so that you can take that content and do what you need to do with it. And then again, if you have the correct permissions, then you can delete any builds that you don't need anymore. Just a way to free up space. Again, if you don't need it, why keep it there? The repository section over here, I'll just touch on that quickly. Again, when we have our local projects bound to Central, then Central can also act as our source control repository. This is simply a read-only view of our project in source control. We can view the history of the commits, so I'll go ahead and show my history here. We can view the history of all the commits on a file-by-file or the project basis here. Again, you can do this in Flare. If you have a license of Flare and you're working on your content, you're going to be interacting with the source control using that source control ribbon that's available in the Flare UI. I'll switch over here to just a second and show you. Again, this is going to be available, so any edits that are done and when you're finished for the day, you can commit them to the repository. But if anybody, who's not using Flare needs to get a quick peek as to what's going on or take a look at all the commits or look at any of these files in a read-only format for whatever reason, go ahead and go back to a particular topic here and show you what I mean. So here's a read-only view of the file. Here's a history of all the commits. There's that comment that I made earlier. Now we have a way to access it. We don't necessarily need Flare to do that. Okay, so the next place I want to make my way back home here and talk a little bit more about these widgets. So again, when we come to our home dashboard, you'll have the opportunity to populate this area with widgets and little information objects that you find helpful. Here I've got my task summary for all of the projects across all users. I also duplicated this particular widget. Now I'm just looking at the tasks just for this particular project. And again, you can filter them any way you want. I can filter them by user as well. So maybe I just want to take a look at what's going on with my team lead here. I can make sure things are on track. I happen to like this project bookmark, so if you want to create a quick link to any of the active projects in your license, you can easily access them here without having to go into the projects folder and then get into them. It's just a quick access point. We can take a look at our storage and uses, so we can see how many seats we've got available, how many seats are used, how much storage we've used on Central. We can take a look at our builds activity down here. Let me make this a little bit, see if I can make my screen come down a little bit more. Well, it looks like my resolution's kind of funky. Anyway, so all of the builds activities for all of our projects are shown here. Here I've got my task calendar. I can see all the things that are coming up. So again, everybody's idea of what's useful here is going to be a little bit different. So if you're playing with Central, then I'd encourage you to kind of come in here and build some widgets out and find a dashboard or create a dashboard that makes sense for you. All right, so I also want to make mention too, you'll see that this says beta up here underneath the Central logo. Right now this is an open and a free beta. So for all of you who are interested in tinkering and playing around with this, I'd encourage you to sign up and invite your team members to participate. During this beta period, which should go through, I don't have an exact end date yet, but I'm thinking through perhaps the end of the year, maybe early part of 2017, it'll be still in beta. You can invite any number of users you want to your Central license. You also have unlimited amount of storage. So if you're interested in playing with this and tinkering and giving us feedback into things you'd like to see, we definitely encourage you to sign up on our website. And after you sign up on our website for a license, then you can invite users to participate on the team. Okay, so we went through a lot today. We invited some users, we created some teams, we took a look at how we can schedule and manage tasks, the project management aspect of Central, we took a look at widgets. I do want to switch gears because we're getting a lot of really great questions coming in. But before I do, I'm just going to pop back over to my PowerPoint here. So just a friendly reminder for all of you that have signed up today, you do get a discount on some upcoming training courses. We have 2 focused advanced classes coming up in January, so you get $100 off if you want to take some of your skills to the next level. I encourage you to review those training outlines there and take advantage of that discount. Also, Mad World. For those of you who don't know, we have our annual user conference here in beautiful San Diego. It's happening April 2nd through the 5th. We're back down at the Hard Rock Hotel, which we're really happy about. When you register by November 30th, you can save up to $1,000 on your registration. So pop back over to madcapsoftware.com, events, Mad World. You can see the URL there. And take a look at the schedule. We have an amazing lineup of speakers, great tool-specific and tool-agnostic sessions for you to sign up for. So we definitely hope to see you all there, and hopefully you all can take advantage of that discount. All right, so let me take a look at some of the questions here because some of them are piling in. I'll do my best to get to what I can. Okay, so question about the upgrade process. How do we upgrade from an older version of Flare directly to 2016 R2? So not a problem. If you've got an active maintenance plan, then you would have received an update to receive the download link and license key to activate 2016 R2. If you don't have an active maintenance plan, contact your sales rep or email us here at sales@madcapsoftware.com and we can go ahead and get you a quote to upgrade to the latest version. If you haven't been notified of your update, if you know you're on maintenance and you haven't received anything, go ahead and give us a call or send us a note and we'll get you straightened out. So here's a good question. Is there a planned release cadence for these new Agile releases, for example, quarterly, and will they require new licenses each time we upgrade? So really good question. We don't actually have a planned release date yet, but we do anticipate a lot more releases coming throughout the end of throughout the year. So again, while in the past we always had that one major version release with a ton of new features added, you're going to start to see updates available that you can download that have features that are ready and available to use. We've also eliminated, if you've got an active maintenance plan, the key you receive to activate Flare 2016 R2 will actually activate any future releases that you receive. So we're eliminating the amount of keys you're going to be receiving in the future. Another nice thing is we're eliminating the maintenance key. So we had the license key you use to activate the software and the maintenance key. Well, we simplified everything now. The license key you use to activate 2016 R2 can now be used as your maintenance key. So the systems will know whether that license is on maintenance or not. So it just reduces the amount of keys that you have to keep track of. So hopefully you'll all be happy about that. And I see we have some applause for the increased font size, which is terrific. So let me just get some other questions here as they're coming in. So a question about the arrows in our output. Are the arrows that allow us to go to previous topic and forward topic? Yes. So I think what the question is, can we go backwards and forwards? And the answer is yes. If we have both the previous and the next topic buttons available, we'll be able to go forward and backward in the sequence. And then the other good question is, well, what's the sequence based on? It's actually based on the table of contents. So let's see. So a couple questions here about cost. What is this going to be when the beta is over? So some of that, the cost and the licensing and the storage, some of that's being ironed out at the moment. But we're looking at a rough range of between $80 and $100 per user per month. And your license will come, we're thinking, with about 1 gig of storage. There's an area in the beta which isn't available yet, but we hope to be available when we release. And let me pop back over to my browser here so I can show you. There's a little button that's missing here that we hope to have, which is a licenses button. It'll be a place for you to renew your Central subscription, add additional users if you want to, purchase additional storage if you need to. So that guy isn't showing up yet, but we hope that it will be there when we actually release. So yes, we're still in beta, so we would encourage all of you to sign up and invite as many users as you can just to try it out. We'd love to get your feedback. Again, this is the first iteration of this, and we have so many things planned and so many features built out that we hope to add as we have iterations of this product. So we'd love to hear from you as well and get your ideas about what you'd like to see, features that you think would make it much more useful for you and your team. So we would love to get your feedback. And let me just keep looking here. I'm going to put myself on mute for just a second. I just returned from the TCOM conference in Germany, and I brought with me a horrible head cold. So excuse me one sec as I get this sneeze through. Okay, I'm back. The last thing you want is to hear me sneeze. So a question here that I see kind of coming up over and over, how does it work if we use Team Foundation Server or Visual Studio Online now? That's a really good question. I didn't really touch on this. We do have the option to have what's called a DualBound Setup. In other words, Central, it can replace your source control solution entirely, but you may be already set up or already been mandated to use some other source control system like Team Foundation Server or Subversion or whatever. If that's the case, you can still use that as your primary source control solution. You're still going to, when you do your commits in Flare from that source control ribbon, you're actually going to be committing it to your primary source control solution, whatever you've got set up. But what you'll want to do is push your files up to Central so that we can keep things in sync. That way you can take advantage of all these other features in Central, in terms of task management, the building of your outputs, the scheduling of things, the staging and the hosting. So you'll still use your primary source control tool, but you'll want to push your files and clone them up in Central just so that you can have access to all the other features that Central gives you on a project basis. So you can be dual bound if you want to, or single bound if you have no other option. So I see that question coming up a lot. Are there any, here's a great question that I see coming up too. Are there any plans to add authoring capabilities in the cloud? So the answer to that is yes. We're thinking about a lot of ways we can build this out. So great requests. I see a lot of those coming in. We're imagining a lot of things in terms of a web-based authoring environment or a lightweight editor in the cloud. So great suggestion, and keep things like that coming. So a question again, does cloud hosting mean you no longer need to publish to source control? Does cloud hosting replace the source control repository? And the answer is yes. You can eliminate your other repository if you want. Central allows you to keep and manage all of your builds. Again, and if there's anything you want to keep in terms of a build that's stable and you like, you can easily roll back to any build that you've kept. So here's another great suggestion. Will there be a JIRA connection to Central for tasks? We don't have this for version 1 at this time, but we're getting some great suggestions on that, and I hope that's something that we can think about for a future iteration. Lots of questions about licensing. So is the licensing a single site? How does licensing work? So a central license, you'll sign up on our website to receive a central license. In fact, I'll go there right now. Let me just go to madcapsoftware.com, and I'll go to Central, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So get started with Central. So you put in your user, your name, your email, just the required bits here, and your company. Whatever you put here in your company will be the name of your Central license, and then you'll hit Request Beta. You're going to receive an email from us that will let you click a link and create a username and password, and then you're in there as the administrator to that Central license. From there, you'll come to a home dashboard that looks empty, and you'll have the ability then to invite as many users as you want. So it's essentially, there's a, I guess you could think of it as a license for your company, and then you can invite users to participate in your license. And the storage is shared among that license. So it's not a collective thing. So for example, we're thinking of offering a gig of storage per license. So let's say you have sign up for a license of Central and you have 2 users, you have a gig of storage between both of you. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, so so a subsequent question to that, I assume users don't need to have the same domain email address. That's correct. Your email address is going to be what you use to actually sign in, so that's going to be unique to you. Okay, so I'm looking through here to see what I can. We're getting some great things coming in. Just a point of clarification, I may have, my cold may have gotten in the way of my pronunciation here. A question about assigning tasks to yourself. Just to clarify, you can create a task and assign it to yourself, so can, C-A-N. You can also assign it to others. So good question, sorry about that. So lots of questions coming in on the same thing, which is great. Let me keep looking here for some questions that I haven't answered yet. Okay, give me a moment as I keep looking. So a lot of questions here about is this session going to be recorded? The answer is yes, we are recording this. So as soon as we're done here, we're going to compile this information. We'll also compile all the questions and answers that have come in from this session, and we're going to be sending it out to everybody who's registered. So you'll have the option to go back and review it at a later time. So we're coming up upon the end of our hour here. Again, I want to thank all of you for joining me today. Thank you all for your wonderful questions. We'll be compiling all of the Q&A and send it out to all of you. I would really encourage you to sign up for Central, start testing it. Again, it's free. So it's totally available for you to use and tinker among your team. Love to get your feedback. Keep those suggestions coming because it's most helpful to see. So if you have any questions at all, let me go ahead and switch to my contact details here. And so you have my information. So I just want to thank all of you again. If you need to get a hold of me for whatever reason, if there's something that I wasn't clear about or you want a little bit more information on, feel free to reach out to me. I put my email address up there. I hope you have a chance to check it out and view it. Again, give us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. And I just wish you all a wonderful rest of the week and hope to see you on the next webinar. So thank you again for joining me. Take care, everybody.